This is
Make it plain.
Make it plain.
MIP
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make it plain.
Get woke.
More MIP right after this. God bless you and good morning. We're going to be joined today by Jen Klein, co-chair of the White House Gender Policy Council. And of course, very important things happening as a result of the Roe decision. Joe Biden announcing just yesterday at the NATO summit press conference that he would now support modification of the filibuster. He has not moved. He hasn't budged from his original position before. That is, nothing should happen with the filibuster, even when it came to voting rights. But now he has changed his position in order to support the congressional codification of Roe, or a woman's right to autonomy over her own body. So Jen Klein will be joining us shortly, but big day yesterday on Capitol Hill in front of the Supreme Court. I was honored to march with the women, and I feel that all of us as men should stand up for women. Talked about that at the march yesterday.
We're out here, folks, marching in solidarity with all the women of this nation to stand up for their rights, their bodily autonomy. This nation can be free until all women are free. And it is incumbent upon every man to be man enough and to have the courage to not only stand with these women, but lift them up. Any man who's a real man should be out here. This is our issue too. This is about our mothers, our daughters, our grandmothers, our aunts. That is why we all are here as men today.
A bit later at the march, the head of Planned Parenthood Action, Kelly Robinson, joined me to make an emphatic statement.
We're all out here standing until we get abortion rights for women. And we as men are out here in support of our sister. I'm out here because my mother and grandmother raised me to be here. God rest their souls. If they were alive, they would be here and would demand that I'm here. Everyone should be here. This is a travesty. Women are no less human beings than men. And so we are here to stand up for what is right. Kelly. Hold it. This is our sister Kelly of Planned Parenthood Action. Right now, can speak to the nation, Kelly. Why are we out here?
We're out here because the people united will never be divided. You hear it? We won't back down. They took away a constitutional right. We've had it for 50 years, and guess what? These people aren't giving up because we care about each other. We know our lives are on the line together, so we're willing to fight together. We're going to put our bodies on the line together, and we're not going to stop. Not now, not tomorrow, not ever until we are free, until we win.
Tell everyone this movement is just seeking out the redress. It was a big mistake that was made last Friday. It has awakened a sleeping giant, and they will regret they did it.
Every elected leader, whether you're a city council person, a state legislator, in Congress, shoot, in the Supreme Court, we are going to make sure that you hear us today.
The testimony we heard about the crazy president grabbing the steering wheel, sending armed people to the Capitol that he knew about to put these individuals' lives in danger. We stand for them too, because their lives were put in danger by the chief executive. He tried to wreck the car. He tried to grab the car. He choked a law enforcement official. That is the temperament. That is the mentality that put those sickos on the Supreme Court to take away our rights, to take away every woman's rights. That makes no sense, and that's why we're here today.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome to Make It Plain in the aftermath of that horrible decision last Friday on the part of the Supreme Court. The director of the White House Gender Policy Council, Jennifer Klein, joins us. Jennifer Klein, how are you? Director Klein, how are you?
Thank you so much for letting me join you today. It's great to see you.
And it's great to see you as well. I regret the circumstances surrounding our conversation. When this ruling came, I mean, we got sort of the heads up from the draft opinion. I guess we were all hoping against hope. But what was the mood amongst the council, amongst the White House staff, and others in the White House when this word came?
You know, a friend who I work with here said something which has really stuck with me, which is, you know, when somebody you love has died and you're even expecting it, and yet when it happens, it's still shocking. That was the experience that I had, and so many of my colleagues here had. You know, as you said, we had that draft opinion. It was there in black and white. We were hoping it wasn't the opinion that they would actually issue, but it was. And then the second thing is that what we didn't see at the time was Justice Thomas's concurring opinion, which made it plain, again, we suspected, but made it plain that not only was this a direct attack on women's fundamental rights to make decisions about their own bodily autonomy, but also really undercut the entire right to privacy, which is the basis of a lot of other rights we hold dear, like the right to marry who you love and make all sorts of medical decisions.
Right. No, absolutely. What are our options? What are the president's options? And I'll cut to the chase. There's some conversation that the administration, the executive branch, might have the ability to provide reproductive services, abortion services on military bases without any deterrence whatsoever. So that as well, as you talk about what the options are, is that an option? Is that real?
Yeah, let's talk about that. So we have, first of all, met with hundreds of people, legal experts, medical providers, doctors, nurses, patients, women's rights groups, civil rights groups, businesses, philanthropy, really everyone, state and local officials, to solicit their views. And one of the issues or one of the ideas that has come up is, as you said, to offer abortion services on actually military facilities, but also other federal facilities. And it sounds like a great answer. It sounds like a great idea, and it's really pretty fraught. I'll tell you why. So, you know, there is at least a reasonable argument that because it's federal property, that at least on some of those federal lands, federal law applies. But it's actually way more complicated than that. And there's this thing called the Assimilative Crimes Act, which first of all really calls into question what law actually applies. And it's, you know, a sort of complicated legal argument, which, you know, quite frankly, nobody has been able to assure us that federal law would always apply. And even if it applies, it protects the actions of only federal employees. So imagine the case, a woman goes to a federal facility, a military facility, gets an abortion, even a pill, even a medication abortion, and then leaves and has literally broken state law. And we are already seeing that states are willing to criminalize women, to criminalize the doctors who are serving them. So that just felt to us like in trying to help people, we were probably actually putting at risk the people we were trying to help.
Yeah, I hear that. Okay. I guess it may be too good to be true, but just the fact that it's being considered. After all, Director Klein, they dare to invoke both antebellum and post-Reconstruction cases, which are absolutely inapplicable. Absolutely. So then, just as Abraham Lincoln, and I've said to the president, as I've communicated with him, be more like Lincoln in every respect. Why it's appropriate if they're going to invoke antebellum arguments like Dred Scott, and Plessy versus Ferguson post Reconstruction, then it's the executive branch's duty to, if necessary, consider if there are military options to protect the public, because that's what happened in those cases. The military had to protect our rights as African Americans. So why not at least consider it? It's a healthy consideration to do so for the bodies of women, just like it was healthy to do so for the bodies of African Americans, correct?
Yes, and that's exactly why, one of the two things that the president announced on Friday, literally, within an hour of hearing about the decision himself, I'm sure you heard it. It was a very, very strong speech, which talked about the extreme action that the Supreme Court had just taken to literally take away a constitutional right. Already as we were sitting there, new extreme state laws were being triggered. And of course, we expect other extreme state laws, some that don't even have an exception for rape or incest, will come into place. And, we expect that 25 or 26 states will have abortion bans when all is said and done. And so what the president did was on Friday was he announced two things, and one of them is directly relevant to your question. And it is that he and the Attorney General issued a very strong statement saying that it is a fundamental American right for people, women, to be able to travel from a state where abortion might be banned to a state where it is legal so that they can get that service. And by the way, it is, incumbent on us to make sure that we're also protecting the provider, the healthcare provider, who's offering a legal service in a place where it is legal. So, we are going to do everything we can to be vigilant and to be on the lookout, and to take immediate action. If anybody, any elected official or other state official takes action to try to prevent somebody from exercising that really bedrock fundamental right to travel.
Yeah. And that almost harkens to another crazy law. Remember the one they used against Jack Johnson? They said he was moving women across state lines for immoral purposes. So once again, this is about controlling the movement of women. It's really unbelievable. Now, you served Hillary Clinton, who was right. Who was right, y'all. So everybody knows that now. Everybody gets it now. She was right. And most of us heard her. You served her in the White House when she was First Lady, but also importantly, in the context of this, if I'm not mistaken, you also served when she was Secretary of State, dealing with global women's issues. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Is it not true that this ruling practically, one, places the United States behind a lot of countries that many would consider less developed than we are when it comes to women's reproductive rights, one. And two, isn't it also true that the availability of reproductive choice and or abortion actually around the world reduces the use of it?
Yes, you are exactly right. I mean, this country is going backwards, and we've really become a global outlier on this. If you look at what's happened in countries, even Catholic countries over the past decades, reproductive rights have become more available to people. And you're exactly right also to point out that, the availability of a right, the ability of a woman to take advantage of a right doesn't mean that there are more abortions. In fact, there are often fewer abortions. And the other point I would make about women's health is that the other thing we do know, and we have seen this in the developing world, and sadly, we are seeing this in this country. We are falling to the bottom also on maternal mortality, rates of maternal mortality. The medical associations are anticipating that Black maternal mortality, will go up 33% in this country over the next several years because of this decision. So that's what happens when you take out of the hands of doctors and healthcare providers and the women who are their patients, when you take those choices away from them and you insert the politician, it's not good for health as well as for people's fundamental rights.
Yeah. Well, in closing, What can you say to us? What can you say to America? What are the other options we have? People want to do something. I think people are more activated than ever before. What do you think we should be thinking about and planning to do?
So we, as we were just talking about, are going to take every action that we can to protect women's health. But I do think that it is really important to realize that you can't do by executive action what a Supreme Court precedent does, which is protect somebody's fundamental rights. So I think, we can't understate the power of what has just happened. On the other hand, this fight is not over. And what it means is that people need to make their voices heard so that we can be sure that the people who represent you in whatever body, whether it's the state or local level, all the way up to the federal level, reflect your values, reflect your priorities. I mean, the vast majority of Americans oppose overturning Roe versus Wade, support the woman's right to make her own decisions about her own body, and are really worried. And the very specific thing that people can do is make their voices heard.
Madam Director, we thank you for joining us on Make It Plain. Keep us posted about all the developments and any way we can inform the public and help to keep people mobilized and energized so we can reverse this. This is a travesty and something must be done. We thank you, Madam Director.
Thank you so much for all you're doing as well.
Thanks for getting woke and listening to Make It Plain. As always, perform an act of kindness on behalf of an elder or young person. Write a letter to a sister or brother who just so happens to find her or himself incarcerated. Offer libations to the ancestors upon whose sturdy shoulders we all now stand. And above all, give thanks to the God of your understanding by whatever name you call her and him. All God asks of us is that we give each other love. Thanks for giving MIP love. And please remember to subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. If all hearts and minds are clear, it has been made plain.